Welcome. Before we get started, make sure you follow the Hilltop on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube to stay connected with everything going on here.
For those who may not know, the Hilltop is a business lounge and event center where it's a place to share, create, and grow. We try to bridge the gap between the community and the business community where we can provide a space, resources, and also opportunities for entrepreneurs and organizations to share their ideas.
RVA Voices is all about highlighting individuals and organizations that are making a real impact. We focus on conversations around empowerment, peace, and prosperity through entrepreneurship, workforce development, culture and arts, wellness, community engagement, and violence prevention. This platform is about sharing stories, building connections, and creating solutions.
Before we get started, we want to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors. A special thanks to the City of Richmond and the Richmond Community Leaders for their support in helping build this studio that we are having this podcast in, supply the equipment, and make this space possible. We also would like to recognize Bond Secure and their seed grant for their continued support. And a big shout out to Melvin Todd Agnew, Injury at Law, T-Mobile, and many sponsors who have paved the way for launching this podcast today.
Now, let's get into today's conversation. Our first guest is Mr. Kerwin Phillips, an author, educator, and youth entrepreneurship advocate dedicated to empowering young people through financial literacy and business ownership. As the author of Malik's First Job, recognized by Essence Magazine, and a co-founder of the Youth Business Exchange, he's helped shape the next generation of leaders through hands-on learning, workshops, and the Richmond Children's Business Fair. Let's welcome Mr. Kerwin Phillips.
What's going on? How y'all feeling?
Yeah,
Feeling good, bro.
Good. That's what's up. Man.
So, Brother Kerwin, considering where you are today,
Right.
how did you get here, and what inspired this journey into youth entrepreneurship and financial education?
Well, actually, I drove down 64 to get over here. But to get into like youth entrepreneurship and financial literacy, it kind of grew over the years. Initially, when I started doing speaking and getting out there, working with young people, started off doing like hip hop history workshops. I'm a hip hop head. Grew up in the 80s and the 90s. Back in the day, you saw me with my Timberlands, baggy pants, Jan Sport, Nautica jacket, all that. So, so I was a hip hop head and wanted to kind of teach young people about the importance of hip hop and how the impact they made within the genre, right? Because we see today, like people, recently we did like the whole 50th anniversary that's recognizing all the pioneers. The guys that you see now with gray beards back in the 70s were teenagers.
Yes.
So this whole multi-billion-dollar industry that, that took over the planet was started by teenagers, right? So if you think about the minds that young people have, what it can become if it's nurtured correctly, right? So that was my whole mission doing the hip-hop thing. And then it kind of evolved. The library started doing job readiness workshops, and they asked me to help with that. Okay. So we was doing some interviewing skills, resume writing for teenagers, and then got into financial literacy. I had a book club, and we were reading the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, right? And the kids I was working with had a hard time with the book because like some of the language and the setting, they was like, Mr. Phillip, how you pronounce that name? And what is this? What is that? The whole Babylonian time frame that they couldn't relate to it. So I said to myself, how can I take that same information and package it in a way that the kids I'm working with can relate to? And I said, well, if it doesn't exist, I could just write my own book.
Right.
And that's what gave birth to Malik's First Job. So it kind of started from there.
Okay.
And initially my thought was to take the book, use it for book clubs. But then it kind of grew on its own, right? Again, it just kind of opened up doors. It took me places I never thought I would go. I was invited to come down to the Black Enterprise, Black Men Excel Conference, where I moderated a panel on fatherhood and finance. As you mentioned earlier, the Essence Magazine article about it being one of the best books to teach kids about money. So it just kind of grew a life of its own. So it kind of started from there, and then we got into youth entrepreneurship as well. Me and a friend, Sean Young, we had a nonprofit organization teaching young men about business and entrepreneurship and financial literacy. And then we had the idea of, we should do like an entrepreneurship event for youth. he said, yeah, we had the idea. And then like a few months later, I met CJ Walker, and she's from Metro RVA Teens. And in talking with her, she had a similar idea, but she was like a little bit further along in the process than we were.
Okay.
So we said, well, instead of us doing this separately, let's work together.
Collaboration.
So we collaborated, and back in, I think it was like 2017, we did the first Richmond Children's Business Fair at the Science Museum in the front rotunda. Had about 30 kids that participated, and it went off well. So we said, let's do it again. So the following year, the second year we did that at the Children's Museum next door. That went well. Mm-hmm. So we said, I think we have something here. So then we went ahead and formed a nonprofit. Okay. I also want to shout out, Coach Stefan Hicks, from My Brother's Keeper, Greater Richmond. Yeah. Because he was vital in helping us get it off the ground. Okay. Because he was like our fiscal agent to kind of help us, with the donations and stuff like that. Yeah. So, we always want to recognize Coach and what he did to help us, get this thing off the ground. Even now we have the, he recently passed a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So now we have the Coach Stefan Hicks Youth Community Impact Award that we recognize a young person every year, just to kind of keep his name alive. Yeah. So again, so it kind of evolved. It started off from the hip hop thing and kind of grew over the years. And now we have the Richmond Children's Business Fair. This past, last month, it was the 9th year of us hosting it. We have about close to over 70 kids that participate every year. So it's just growing. It's growing.
Man,
that's amazing.
Yeah. Man, what I heard was you created a village.
Yeah.
The village surrounded you, and then you created a village to surround the kids.
Yes.
So that's amazing, brother. Yes. I appreciate that.
Yes,
and it's far gone how we don't understand that it takes more than just us.
Right.
You try to do everything on your own. You will run into hurdles. You will get burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't afraid to say, hey, let's do this together.
Oh, yeah.
I know we're doing the same thing,
right?
But we're not competing. We got the same goal. Let's do it together.
Yeah.
So that's what I heard. I appreciate that.
Yeah. That's a major thing that goes on in our community is that everybody want to have separate. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to be the head.
Yep.
Yeah. Whereas let's come together and just, because if it's about the community, it's not about the titles and stuff like that. Let's go, because we could be button heads all this time, and then the kids wouldn't have anything.
Right.
But we said, let's come together and make this happen, and now we've been impacted hundreds of kids throughout the years.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Good. Mr. Curran, through the Youth Business Exchange and the Richmond Children's Business Fair, you're giving young people real-world business experience. How does early exposure to entrepreneurship shape their future opportunities and mindset?
There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell. I think that's the author's name, called Tipping Point. Right, and in the book he speaks about either Tipping Point or Outliers, but he wrote both of the books. But in the concept, it speaks about 10,000 hours that's needed to master a particular craft. Okay. Right. So like we can compare it to, like right now we're going through the NCAA tournament, right? Mm-hmm. Basketball tournament, and we see kids that are doing remarkable things. Right. That kid who shot the 3-pointer for
game winner
for UConn.
Yep.
Right. Mullins. Now, how many children, athletes, whether it's football, basketball, whatever, fantasize about hitting that game-winning shot or throwing that game-winning touchdown?
All of them, basically.
Right? How many times have they? I'm sure he has reenacted that thing since he was a kid. Right. So we have kids nowadays. That's a lot of people put their kids into sports, right? And they start younger and younger. So if I'm playing football, I'm playing basketball from the age of 5. Mm-hmm. Every year, going to tournaments, going to camps, rec ball, high school, everything. By the time I get to college, I'm a master.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing it so many times, right? So what happens when we get our kids started in business? Because we have kids that start from 5 years old. I remember the first year we had our chef Jaheem. He was cooking, and he sold out plates. And now his brother has the lemonade that's out there now.
Okay.
But and even now we have a set of twins that participate. They're like 5, 6 years old that sells lemonade, right? Justice and Justin, right? Just the best lemonade. Right? Awesome. So imagine all the lessons that they're learning: selling, marketing, financial literacy, communication skills, everything, management, right? The art of rejection, right? Because everybody's not going to buy from you. right? So, and that's an art within itself, being able to take the no and be able to bounce back.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to try the next person.
Right.
And the next person.
Exactly.
Right? So if you get all this stuff from the age of 5, or you started doing that from the age of 10, what happens when you turn 16, 17, 18, and you have all that wealth of experience?
Right.
Well, you know, wait, why are you then? Because most adults wait till they after college or they become an adult to start that 10,000 that 10,000 hour path.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Right?
Not too late.
Not too late, but it take them 10, 20 years, so they start to peak at 30, 40 years old. But if a child who's starting at age 5 or age 10, where they're going to be at age 20? They stay within that entrepreneurship, path. So it's a bright future.
Yeah.
It's really preparing them for life, because the lesson they learn will go beyond entrepreneurship. Because a lot of the kids may not remain entrepreneurs; they may go into other paths, but they still have that experience.
Yes.
Right, and that experience is going to last them a lifetime.
Yeah. I'm glad you started out with that basketball shot and the bouncing back, because what may have been missed is he was 1 for 5 in that game. That was the one shot he hit at the end, but he took 5 shots before. He took 4 shots before.
Right.
Missed all of them. He could have got down in himself, lacked confidence, but because he been working on his game, he still shot it with confidence.
Yep.
And he hit it.
Yep.
And now he's infamous.
Yep.
So that's that bounce back, that resiliency. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so how does giving young people access to entrepreneurship education opportunity help reduce negative influences and contribute to safer and more peaceful communities? How does giving young people access to entrepreneurship and education help create those opportunities?
I think right now the major issue that we have within, a lot of our communities is that kids have like a low self-esteem. The media doesn't really pay a high image or a positive image of like young black people, right? Young black kids, and, we spoke earlier about me being in the hip hop. I remember a time when we came up, like in the 80s and the 90s, culture, was emphasized, right? When we watched shows like The Cosby Show, The Different World, all them programs, people were wearing African, attire,
HBCU sweatshirts,
So it was
playing jazz.
Yep. So it was a exposure to the culture, right? But now, as we see, it was reflecting the music as well, because we had groups like Public Enemy, X-Clan, Brand Nubian,
Africa Bambaataa,
the whole native tongue movement.
Yes.
Right. So it was we saw a positive reflection in hip hop, right? And now, whatever powers that be that came and took over the culture, hip hop culture, we don't see those same images no more. Because again, at the time, those positive images were predominantly on the radio. You saw it on BET, you saw it on Rap City, you saw it on MTV, your MTV Raps.
Yeah.
It was out there, and we saw it, and they saw the impact it was having on the minds of the young people. Right? I remember we was in college during that period of time, and we would go to a KRS-One concert, but we also go see Kwame Ture. We sit in a lecture, right? We'll go see Farrakhan. We'll go see Brother Khalid, and sit there and take notes. And we were aware. There was a wide awareness of the issues that were taking place in society. We don't see that as much now, right? So the kids don't have that positive reflection, right? So having these youth entrepreneurship programs and financial literacy, right? It gives them something to aspire to, right? It gives them that confidence, that self-confidence to know they can go out there and sell and market, and I can create a product and somebody's going to want it.
Right.
So it gives them a sense of purpose, right? And when you have a sense of purpose, you ain't got time to be out there acting the fool because you have something to lose.
That's right.
Right? So we got to make sure that our kids have that sense of purpose again, have that positive insight, that positive imagery about themselves, right? And we could turn this whole thing around.
Man, I'm glad you brought up the Cosby Show. Because that is the first time I ever heard jazz.
Yeah.
And some of those HBCU sweatshirts he was wearing, I never heard of HBCUs or those colleges. So imagery is powerful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I also did want to add, I do think it's amazing what you're doing, because not a lot of people know, even how to use a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
Even I'm 22.
Okay.
I have friends that don't know how to use a credit card, don't know
Right.
how powerful a credit card is, what it can do for you, and even what to do as an adult, a young adult, rent and wanting to buy a house.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a great thing that you're doing, and
You
I
should.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Beyond business, how do entrepreneurship and creative expression impact confidence, mental wellness, and the overall development of young people?
Yeah. I think I kind of touched on that earlier. The fact that, being able to come up with an idea and bring it to fruition, and then going out there, because you're nervous.
Yeah.
I'm in business. I know, like, when I first put the book out, I didn't know how it would be received by the general public. Right. So having a child come up with a product, go out there and sell it and produce, and pitch it, and being able to overcome that fear and still push forward. Again, it adds to their self-worth. That they feel valuable.
Yeah.
Because I've seen so many kids over the years, who've been shy and timid, but yet when they get out there and they see that, oh wow, I created this product and somebody wanted it and they bought it. Right. It builds that confidence. Yeah. Now they're outspoken and they're out there doing their thing. Right. So it goes beyond just that initial standing behind a table selling a product.
Yeah.
These experiences are going to last a lifetime. I think I mentioned that earlier. The child would never forget that. Right. You never know what it's going to take. I mean, where it's going to take them.
Yeah.
They just by overcoming that fear, now they're able to go and stand in front of bigger audiences and bigger crowds and create more products and do other things. Right. Because it's going to evolve. You may start selling out lemonade, but you never know, that child can be the next president or congressperson or whatever. They say it all started from me being able to overcome that fear of talking in front of people or presenting myself.
Yes.
Right. So it's just giving them the experience. And we initially started off the business fair with just a one-day event, but now this year, like for the past couple of years, we also have the Youth Entrepreneurs Summit, where we're taking kids that are participating in the business fair for quite some time, and now we're putting them on stages to speak and share about their experiences. So now they're developing a different skill. Because now you see, like, a lot of entrepreneurs, adult entrepreneurs, once they've been in business for a while, now they want to share their story. Now they're doing TED Talks and conferences and public speaking and all this other stuff. So now we're preparing the kids for that as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate you even bringing that perspective, because not all kids are going to be athletes.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So it's incumbent upon us and other adults in the community to say, hey, there's another way.
Yeah.
So I started off being an entrepreneur selling Snickers bars at school.
Right.
And we all did something in that realm, but no one ever said that was entrepreneurship.
Right.
So now that word is out here, and now you have people like you doing that work in the community at places here like the Hilltop, it makes sense. So we thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
From my experience, I think that most kids, they only know sports all their life, and then once the sports are gone, they get injured, they get cut out the team, or they fall out of love with the sport, turn to violence, they start just doing bad stuff. No, you don't have any direction in life. I used to play sports in soccer. I used to play soccer. I lost soccer kind of competitively. I stopped playing, and I didn't turn to bad stuff, but I just didn't know what to do. I've been on the entrepreneur route for a while, but I never really committed myself. I tried drop shipping. What is the real estate one again? Wholesaling. I tried all that stuff. I looked at YouTube videos. I trade in and all that stuff, and I just never really committed to one.
Right.
And I think that's the most important part, that if you're going to do something, you need to commit to one thing. You can't do every single thing at one time.
Right. I would first say, even though you try different things, it hasn't clicked yet, keep looking, right? Because you never know what that next thing is that will stick with you, right? Because I know throughout my years of entrepreneurship, I've done plenty of things. Different types of network marketing, from the Amways to all the different titles and stuff that's been out there. What's it like, the 5 links that was out there one time? all that.
All that stuff.
Did all that stuff. But the funny thing is, there was a lesson learned from each one, right? And I remember when I put the book out, and I think this is part of the reason why the book kind of spread so much. I said I can't put less effort into a product in which I created than what I've done for other people trying to sell other products. It's a different type of motivation when it's your own product, something that you created. It's your baby, right? If I was out there hustling, these different network marketing programs, I'm on the phone with people and sending emails. I got to work twice as hard if it's my own product.
That's right.
But again, just keep developing and keep trying, because each failure, not necessarily a failure, it's a lesson that's learned, and there's a skill that's learned through that process, like what you learn through doing wholesaling, right? Doing cold calls.
That's determination right there.
That's determination. Because there was a time I used to sell mixtapes, right? I was that dude who used to come through the barbershop with a duffel bag with mixtapes and oils and incense. And I mean, when I first started doing that, it was like, you walk into a barbershop or beauty salon and all these blank stares looking at you. You're like, man. I said, you know what? I said, all right. So you got to overcome that, that doubt, that fear, and get out there and make it happen.
Right.
So all that was a lesson that I learned that kind of makes me, like not to do it now. Like I have no fear talking in front of people. Well, large audiences, you still got kind of scary, but one-on-one, I'll approach anybody. And that came from me going through that battleground, through that obstacle course, throughout all the different things I've done. It made me to who I am today.
Right. Man, Brother Kerwin, we really appreciate you, brother. You have inspired us, and you inspired this audience, and we're glad you're inspiring the youth. One thing I would just want to highlight is that your inspiration, he said he was a hip-hop head. So if you look at this cover, you can tell he's a real hip-hop head. So for our parents and other entrepreneurs, we say go out and get this book, Malik's First Job. He already told you he's doing well. It's a great way, and it's a palatable way for young people to learn about entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and to find a motivation to do something different, right? So as we close this session out, brother, I just want to thank you for doing what you're doing, not getting deterred, and also showing the young people that if you persevere, then things will work out.
Yeah.
So hold on to that dream.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Appreciate you. Thanks.
What's up, everybody? We're here at the Hilltop today, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and subscribe to us on YouTube.
Before we get started, we would like to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors. A special thanks to the City of Richmond and the Richmond Community Mediators for their support in help building the studio where we are now, supplying the equipment, and making this space possible. We will also like to recognize Bon Secours and the Seed Grant for their continued support. And a big shout out to Melvin Todd, Agnew Todd Injury Law, T-Mobile, and many sponsors who have helped to pave the way in launching this podcast today. We truly appreciate everyone who has helped bring a role in making this vision come to life.
All right, and today we're here with Mr. Melvin Todd. And how are you doing today, Mr. Melvin?
I'm feeling pretty good today. Much so.
Feeling great. Mr. Melvin Todd is a personal injury attorney and community advocate based in Richmond, Virginia, committed to serving individuals and families through strong legal representation and community engagement.
So, Mr. Todd, considering where you are today, how did you get here, and what inspired you to journey into law and advocacy?
Well, number one, I just want to thank you all for having me here. I've connected with Hilltop before with a couple other events. I think it's a great organization up here in Fulton, and I'm just very, very happy to be here. So thank y'all for having me. How did I find myself where I am now? I grew up here in Richmond. My mother was Dr. Boone, a longtime pediatrician here in the city of Richmond. Took care of most kids. If you were Black, you probably went to my mom as a physician. So with that and seeing her running her practice and just, being really about service, something that really inspired me. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, but I certainly wanted to do something where I could touch people, help people, and be of service to Richmond and just the community as a whole. So that's what really landed me here.
Okay. If you had to pinpoint a particular thing that sparked that service in you, what would that be? What time of your life? What would that be?
To be honest with you, I mean, I'll say, since I was a teenager, like I said, my great inspiration will always and forever be my mom. Okay. Just because, I saw how she interacted with folks. I saw how she did her medical practice here in the city. I saw the impact that it had on folks here in the city. Even she's been gone now about 2 years, and people come up to me almost every day and said, "Oh, your mother was my pediatrician. She saved my child's life or did some great thing." And trying to live up to that is truly what inspired me to seek a position or seek a job where I get to serve folks.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know their rights. What would you? Or sorry,
Take your time, brother.
Okay. A lot of people do not know their rights. How important do you think education about people's rights is in the community?
So obviously I'm a lawyer. I've gone to law school. I've had years of experience trying cases. I was a longtime public defender here in the city of Richmond. I ran a criminal defense firm for many, many years. Knowing your rights, to me, it really separates you from anybody else on the street. When you're dealing with maybe the government or a heavy hand of a police officer or anything like that, if you know what they can and cannot do, you're head and shoulders above the game. People aren't going to treat you in a way because you can advocate for yourself. You know your rights. So if you're asking me how important that is, I think it's as important as learning to look both ways before you cross the street. I think it's one of the most important things that you can teach your children or just yourself, just how to engage in the world and know what people are allowed to do to you and what you can expect and demand of other folks.
Now, with so much information out there, where would you send someone to find accurate information about how to correctly engage your rights? Because you do have those heavy-handed police officers, and we do, sometimes you see people who know their rights, they may get a little belligerent. So how would you guide a young person in where to find it, the accurate information, and then how to engage using your rights with law enforcement?
So obviously the first place you got to start is just reading. Yeah. Reading the Constitution is a bit dense if you're just a lay person, but that's where you start. Any other kind of book that's going to give you what it is that you can expect, particularly in dealing with the government or particularly dealing with just anybody in public, what you can expect. I do notice that folks sometimes they will have a cursory knowledge of their rights and then believe that, I can do this, I can do that, the police can't do this, the police can't do that. And I tell people this. When you're dealing with the police, you're on the street, all right? You don't fight your case on the street, all right? You're going to lose 10 times out of 10 on the street. You do whatever you got to do to safely to get out of that situation, and you fight it in court. You call someone like me or anybody else, and you fight it in court. So don't try to fight that battle on the street. It is what it is. The police are going to do what they're going to do at that day. That's just their day, and then you fight it in court.
All right, so let's highlight that. Do not fight your battle on the street.
No,
make it home.
Yeah, right.
And
right,
call
right,
a lawyer.
Right.
Call
right.
Melvin Todd.
Right. So that's really what I see a lot. A lot of folks, like I said, they have a good knowledge of the law, and they're just waiting to have some negative encounter with a police officer, and think that this moment in time is when they're going to fight that battle. And like I said, you're going to lose every time. The time is to fight it in court.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned the Constitution being a dense piece of work. So is there a resource that you could recommend that makes it a little more palatable, that's accessible for a person that may be overwhelmed by the Constitution?
Of course, I call it the University of YouTube.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I'm a lawyer. I do a lot of reading, but if I really just want something quick and concise, and maybe in a way that even myself I can digest quickly, a great resource is YouTube, the internet, Wikipedia, all those places. At least will give you a good idea of what you're looking at, and then if you want to or you need to, you can go to the more denser materials.
Okay.
Do you have any advice for any, as an attorney running your own business, do you have any advice for any aspiring paralegals or lawyers in your
So for me, my journey in the practice of law is, like I said, I was a public defender for a long time. And that to me helped me immensely because it made me have to try cases. So, I've tried countless murder cases, countless, bad drug cases, countless violent cases here in the city of Richmond. I've obviously pivoted to more personal injury, but that experience of not being afraid of a courtroom, the judges sort of knowing me, local attorneys knowing me has helped me in my personal injury pivot immensely. I mean, it's worth its weight in gold. So for any attorney that I would talk to, if you really want to try to work for yourself and really try to bring in clients from the public, I would say you want to spend a lot of time where you are either working in the Commonwealth Attorney's office or in the public defender's office, taking clients just from the public, having to try those cases. Obviously you're not going to win them all, but just having that experience is worth its weight in gold. And when you get out there to really try to swing for the fences, you have that experience. No one can ever take that away from you. You can build upon that. As far as a paralegal, just getting good resources. Virginia, we have a really good bar. We have a really good trial lawyers association. So there are a lot of great resources that people have already done it. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So all kind of brief banks and materials that already have things sort of formulated for you. So you sort of know how to formulate it, how to put the thoughts together, then you can just put your own spin on it.
So you mentioned public defender.
Correct.
Right? Everyone may not know what a public defender is,
okay.
And then how is that different from being an attorney or defender outside of that?
Sure. So most people, I think, at least if you've been in any kind of trouble, you'll know the difference between a paid lawyer and like a paid lawyer, right? So everybody always says, I want to get a paid lawyer, I'm going to pay my lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you have a constitutional right if you are facing jail time that the government will pay for an attorney for you if you're indigent, if you can't afford for one. Like I said, I was a longtime public defender in the city of Richmond public defender's office. I was also a public defender in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I would say, particularly when I was in Richmond, those folks are some of the best lawyers, particularly the class that I came up with that I've ever seen. Now, all those folks are no longer there. They're all, well on to their career. But it's not a situation where I know when I was a public defender and I was doing public work, I would hear a lot, oh, he swapped me out or he traded me out or he did something that he wasn't supposed to do. So someone else would get less time, yet I got more time. These things never occur. Most of the folks that I work with, were solid trial lawyers that were really trying to win and show out for their clients and make sure that your rights were protected and attacked when necessary. So there's certainly a difference between a paid lawyer and a public lawyer, meaning that a paid lawyer has a smaller caseload and they have the ability to give you that hand holding, that white glove experience. Whereas a public defender, you're going to be dealing with a person with just a lot of files. They might not have the time to give you that hand holding, that white glove experience. But when it's trial time or it is time to do their work, they're going to do whatever they can to help you.
Man, thank you for making that clarification. Paid versus public.
Right.
Public meaning they have a large caseload. They may not be able to give you the white glove service, but a paid person has a smaller caseload. They can spend more time on your case.
Correct. So
it was my understanding that public defendants, they just came in there and just they didn't really care.
No. I mean, like I said, that obviously there's some folks that are probably like that, but most of the folks that I work with were very zealous. They cared a great deal, and that's why you sort of go into the profession because you have that service mindset is what you want to do. Or at least just make sure you learn the craft in a way that you're not going to learn if you're just sitting in the office waiting for someone to call you.
Right. And because we're in this entrepreneurial space, we don't want to overlook the fact that being your independent attorney is a business.
Correct. Right.
So our question now is, how do you maintain your mental health with these cases, with the with running a business as well, you're doing something that's your passion, but business is in a whole nother side. Keeping the lights on is a whole nother side.
Right.
So how do you
Right,
maintain
right.
your mental health on both sides of those equations?
Well, number one, my team is top notch. The assistants that I have, and we have several of them. They're all, I mean, I think if they went to law school, they'd probably be, probably better attorneys than me. But they just do the things that I can't get to because I'm out sort of in the field in court. So I would tell anybody, if you're going to do it, you need a team, you need support staff. I also have a business partner.
Okay.
My business partner, she's very strong. She definitely keeps me out the gutter. Make sure that the things that I'm weak on, that she's very strong on. So that certainly helps me. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a business, and we are not. I'm no longer a public defender. I haven't been one for many, many years now, and I am interested in turning a profit here. So the name of the game is really just to work very hard to achieve, the goal, and the goal is success. Simple and plain. There's no other way about it. If I take a case on, luckily in the personal injury side, I can sort of field my cases a little bit better than I could if someone's just calling me. So odds are, if I don't see an avenue for success, I'm generally going to pass on the case. So once I see that path of success, we set out a plan, and we sort of work that plan. And hopefully we can get the case settled. If not, then we already sort of have an idea of how it's going to look before it goes to trial. And then if it's necessary, we'll get the case filed and get the case tried.
And consultations are free?
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course.
You touched on another piece. You said you had a team.
Correct, right.
So that is another part of entrepreneurship that we want to highlight for our viewers.
Right.
Is that if you're working by yourself, you can't do everything by yourself.
Right.
So it's better to hire a team. So how did you decide or find the right people for what you were doing?
I'm a very kind of person that if you're sort of in my space and you're around me, then you're family to me. So the folks that I work with, now there are a few people, obviously things have just moved so fast that, we have some people that are, I guess, offshore. They do more like the answering the phones and more like the, just the mundane sort of tasks. But my core staff, these people I work with for years in just different places, like I said, they have the keys to my house almost.
Okay.
They've watched my children before, and they work for me, and they should do what I tell them to do, but they're really should, right?
Right.
But they're really family to me. And that's the only way I know how to carry it, and I'm very good to them. Like I said, if we hit big, then they hit big as well. It's not just a one-man show. I'm the one that's doing all. I don't. That's just not who I am at all. We are strongly, very much so, a family. I'm proud to call them my dear friends, and I love them. There's just no two ways else about it.
Right.
I have a question. You said that they've watched your kids before. About how many hours within the week are you in the courthouse? Are you in your business?
Man, it never stops. It never stops, B. It never stops. I mean, I have 4 children, all right? And I have 4 young children. So my oldest is 4. My wife is right. I just had a baby. My wife gave birth to a little girl February the 10th. So,
Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm not a young man. I'm not a young man. I mean, like I said, my wife is great. She definitely holds the house down. If you're asking me, if I'm up, I'm working. I try to take Saturdays off. Anybody that sort of knows me, that's like my friend, they know that if I'm up, I am generally working. Ask me a question one more time.
How often do you find yourself in the courthouse? How often do you find yourself in your office? How often are you at home?
So I'm in the office every day. I'm in court just about every day. Like I said, I like trying cases. So, if we're not getting what we want, if we can't get the case settled and we can't get the case settled for the dollar amount that I think is appropriate, I'm filing a lawsuit. Like I was in court today. That's why I was a little bit late getting here. I got court in Norfolk tomorrow. Wow. I'm in court, like I said, a couple of times a week. I'm in my office. I mean, I live there pretty much. I also have a home office that, that I live in as well. So I don't even keep track of the hours I work because I literally, I'm always working. It's just no point in me, So like I said, if I'm up and I don't have my children, then I'm working.
All right. I want to push it a little bit further on this time piece, right?
Sure.
How do you make space for your family?
Well, again, like I said, my wife is going to insist upon it.
Yes.
So there's certain things that we as husband and wife have decided that she's going to do, and certain things that I'm going to do. So if you're trying to call me Thursdays at 4, I'm generally at gymnastics with my oldest. Saturday mornings, I'm at ballet. Okay. Like I said, Saturdays, I just take Saturdays off. All right. So, don't call me on a Saturday. You're probably not going to get me. And like I said, there's certain things in the household that are my job. So I take my oldest to school every day. I try to pick her up when I can, but a lot of times I am busy, so I can't pick her up. So I try to lock things into my schedule. When I was a kid, my parents worked a lot, and they could never, my mom never went on a field trip. And like I said, my mom was great. I'm not taking it away from her, but she was trying to do what she had to do. So my parents didn't go to a lot of my school events. Now that I am a parent, I have my own children, if there's a field trip, I put it in my calendar, and that's priority. So, so how do I make time? I mean, it's forced upon me. And then, like I said, I build it into my calendar.
Right. So all the viewers listening, time management is important. Make space for those that you care about. And we hear that he's scheduling the time. Schedule the time to do the things that are important so that those that you love always feel like you have time for them. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
How can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
I have a pretty robust Instagram. So most folks know me as Todd804. You can connect with me there. My cell phone, like my literal for real cell phone that's probably ringing right now. That number is up there. You connect me there. You connect me in the office. We have a Richmond office and a Norfolk office. Wow. So I'm obviously I live in Richmond. Richmond's my main hub. But like I said, I have court in Norfolk tomorrow, so that's where I'll be tomorrow. But
do you ever stay in Norfolk and you're at your office, or do you always make sure you try and come back home?
Like I said, I have 4 young kids at home. My wife insists that I come home, so no matter what, I'm going home. But like I said, I'm more than likely I'm gonna be in the Richmond office. Occasionally, I'm in Norfolk. And like I said, really need to get me. You can find me on Instagram. I generally respond pretty fast, and my cell phone's all over the place. So if you need me, you can always just hit my cell phone, and I'll answer the phone unless I'm in court or respond to any text message.
Oh, man, we appreciate you taking the time today with us.
Oh, man, I appreciate having you.
And remember, you guys,
thank you.
If you need a personal injury attorney, Mike Todd is there. Consultation.
Well, Michael Todd is my uncle. He's a lawyer down in Charlotte. I'm Melvin Todd. So Todd 804. No.
Melvin Todd is a personal injury attorney, and he will do consultations for free, and he will let you know whether or not you have a case.
Absolutely.
So please reach out to Melvin 804.
Well, Todd 804 is the Instagram. You can call me on my cell phone, which is 804 356-2183. You can also call me in the office. You can find us on the internet at agnewtodd.com. I'm generally very responsive, and I'm around for you. So if you get in a car crash, please give me a call.
So again, we'd like to thank Melvin Todd, 804, for sitting down with the Hilltop, sharing his story, sharing his experience, and sharing his life. So as you can see, as an entrepreneur, there are things you're going to have to make decisions about. You have to make time for your family, for yourself. You have to spend time on your business, on your craft, and keep educating yourself.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody. And if you want to see more, you can follow the Hilltop or subscribe to us on YouTube.
RVA Voices is here to showcase your voice. If you or an organization would like a space where you can share what you're doing in the community around entrepreneurship, around education, around health and wellness, arts and culture, and around violence prevention, this is a place for you. So please DM us in our Instagrams, other platforms, so that we can showcase what you're doing in the community.
Also, if you would like to host your own podcast here at the Hilltop, send us a DM. And
RVA Voices is here to highlight voices in the community that are doing great work. If you would like to be on RVA Voices or have a recommendation for RVA Voices, please DM us on all our social media platforms.
Also, if you would like to host your own podcast here, feel free to reach out to us also at the Hilltop RVA. And the Hilltop is
a place to gather, create, and grow. Until next time.
Peace.